Welcome to Strength in Concrete, the podcast presented by the Post-Tensioning Institute, recognized as the leading authority in advancing the post-tensioning industry. In this episode, our host Tim Christle, the Executive Vice President of PTI, sits down with Greg Hunsicker, Deputy Director at the Concrete Bridge Engineering Institute at the University of Texas in Austin. Together, they delve into the topic of adoption of PTI specifications M50.3 and M55.1 by state departments of transportation, DOTs, as well as specification references and updated standards issued by the American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials, AASHTO. They'll also explore the critical importance of certification programs in ensuring the quality and durability of post-tensioned concrete bridge projects. Greg shares exciting new initiatives from the Concrete Bridge Engineering Institute at UT Austin, including the value hands-on training adds to shaping the next generation of industry professionals. Join us for a compelling and insightful discussion about the current and future state of concrete bridges, where cutting-edge advancements and collaborative efforts lead the way in building more resilient and sustainable infrastructure.
Welcome to episode 2 of our PTI podcast series, Strength in Concrete. Today, we're going to continue to focus further on post-tension bridges and have another conversation with one of our experts in the industry and a great member and partner to PTI. Today, I'll be talking with Greg Hunsicker. He's the Deputy Director at the Concrete Bridge Engineering Institute at the University of Texas in Austin. And so we're glad to have Greg here today to talk about further some of these topics related, again, to post-tension bridges, some of the major positive advantages, and just the overall advancement of concrete bridges throughout time in the industry. Greg, I think we'll kick off here, and I wanted to start off this conversation building upon the previous podcast, talk more about, we mentioned before, the specifications that are some of the primary specs used in our post-tension bridge work, our what we call our M50.3 spec, which is for the multi-strand and grouted and bonded systems, the PT multi-strand systems, bar systems, and then also our M55.1 spec related to grout specifically itself, the material and installation, and how those specs have evolved. And I've talked previously in the podcast about how those have improved greatly over the years, and the industry has really gotten together to enhance those. And one of the main things too that's happening recently in the last, say, 20 plus years is over time, there's been the adoption of those specs into state DOT specs. Also, we've moved most recently in the last couple of years into finally getting an opportunity to our M50.3 and 55.1 specs. And so I wanted to talk to you further about the value and importance of that adoption and how that starts to work towards even further improving the spec requirements for PT concrete bridges.
Thanks, Tim. It's definitely an honor to be here with you. I think that recently it's been quite a bit. It's been updated, changed in the industry. There's been an evolution of the specifications for post-tensioning probably over the last 20 years, in both the multi-strand and bridge transportation sector, as well as the commercial. And a lot of that has been really focused on ensuring the quality, durability of the systems and some of the really key components, and establishing those standards as really the bar for ensuring quality, both for the systems and also for their installation. So it's been a lot of work. I think it's been done, especially over the last 20 or so years, in trying to get those to where they are. And as you mentioned, there's been some places that have adopted, or maybe early adopters. I know Texas Department of Transportation certainly was one that had adopted the PTI SB M50 .3 specification, the M50 PTI M55.1 specification, and had a lot of involvement, engagement in that pretty early on. But then, as you mentioned, most recently, what's been just released, the 10th edition of the AASHTO Bridge Design Specification, LRFD Bridge Design Specification, and also the latest interim revisions came out, I think, the end of 24 on the 4th edition of the LRFD Construction Specifications, both by reference and also some modifications that I think put the specifications in harmony. A lot of that is by reference to those two and the PTI specifications. And what that does, I think, is provide a baseline across the country for what the post-tension standards are. And it really gives an opportunity to get the latest state of practice. And it still gives everyone, obviously, the opportunity in a particular region or state or jurisdiction, if you want to have a certain revision for, let's say, some specific items that you like different than in the spec that either have been based on past practice or specific needs, obviously that possibility is always there. And I know even in the Texas Department of Transportation standard specifications, there are a few modifications that are specific to Texas, but for the most part, you have 99% of the specification that's part of the overall industry standard, let's say.
Yeah, that's absolutely. I think too, I wanted to touch on, because I know you were a big part of it as well, the process of how we worked with certain states and worked with AASHTO and the evolution of that process to really, you say they're a major stakeholder. This is a big piece of the entire industry. Obviously, we talk a lot about suppliers and contractors and engineers as well, but obviously on the owner side and the federal ownership side, there's a lot of process and procedural things to go through the adoption and to get, again, each state comfortable, like you say, the integration of their preferences and what we've got to provide. And so maybe speak a little bit to some of the process that other states might learn from if they think about how that goes about.
Yeah, I think one of the things that comes to mind just in a general sense is in looking through the specifications, let's say from an owner's perspective, comparison to what may be currently in practice or in standard specs within a certain area. A lot of times the standards that are within the AASHTO specifications, probably a lot of that is going to be the same adoption throughout the country. And then you have some potential revisions again by states for certain requirements. And that's not unique to post-tensioning. But to go back a step, even before the AASHTO adoption, I think one of the key things of both of those specifications is the PTI ASB M50.3 and the PTI M55.1 was the consensus process that those documents go through. This the pretty big group that was involved with that. And I think by having ASB and PTI together especially in the M50.1 specification, it represented from pretty early on a pretty good cross-section of the industry. It started back before 2012, quite a bit before then, but I remember the first M50.3 was in 2012, I think it was, right? Mm-hmm. And yeah, the group that was involved with that, it was certainly asset owners, transportation agencies from several states, design engineers that are involved, consultants from a design point of view, and that are also closely interacting in a lot of cases with asset owners. Inspection agencies, PT suppliers, component suppliers, installers, contractors, other associations, Federal Highway. I think from early on, there was quite a big cross-section that was involved, and that is really critical, I think, to have something that's going to be adoptable. If you have something to start off with right off the bat that doesn't really have that cross-section or that consensus process, I think the path forward on that is probably going to be limited because it's going to be very one-sided one way or the other and doesn't really have that industry involvement. So I think that really helped create, the foundation for the subsequent adoption, down the road, which started off, I would say, a little bit more grassroots. And I would say none of it was really too different than some of the other things that were already being discussed in the industry, but it was really a collection of what's the best practice overall in each of these items. It probably led to where, some of the things are here just recently over quite a few years.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, you're right. It's people that have a seat at the table and really they have a voice, and that really helps inform the documents and inform everything from all perspectives. And that's the beauty of the consensus process in general. So I'm glad you touched on that. And the other piece too, I want to build on too, and I also was remiss in noting that you are our immediate PTI past president. So thanks for all your time serving the previous 2 years on that. You've been certainly very beneficial to leading PTR, and that's another great reason why you're here talking to me today. I want to move into expanding upon not only the quality improvements and durability improvements and all the benefits that have tied themselves to these specs, but also, as touched on a little bit in the previous podcast, and now I want to expand on, is the other beauty of what's being done to try and improve, again, workmanship, improve the overall quality, durability, and integrity of PT bridges is all of our PTI certification programs. We've got pillars basically that we deal with, but specifically the PT bridges, we've got our field personnel certification workshops, and we've got our newest program launched last year, which is the PT system qualification testing certification program. As you well know, the field certification deals with workmanship and training and skill and education for those who are building and installing and stressing and grounding and all that. And then the systems program is related to the systems specifically themselves, their quality characteristics, their adherence to our specs and the testing requirements and all those assurances we want to be able to provide, again, to the owner that things are up to snuff and of the highest quality. So maybe we wanted to, again, expand on the conversation there on how important and what the value is related to these programs. PTI puts a lot of time and effort into them, as does other partners like AASHTO and just in general, the concrete bridge industry. Just expand upon that, how that's really important to, again, putting the modern PT bridges in a different light than what was happening 30, 40, 50 years ago.
Yeah, that's a good point. To start with maybe the certification you mentioned first. I think looking back at maybe some of the earlier days, there's certainly not to say there wasn't good workmanship and quality out there, but I would say it was probably just not really a backbone of something like the training and certification program out there. And so to get that consistency and set that bar, that's where I think a training certification program is pretty key. And I think, Tim, there's other examples you have too, I'm sure, from the other programs within PTI, right? We've had the other field certification programs where that's just been embraced because it's a key piece. It's not the only piece for sure, but ensuring everyone's got exposure and sees the importance, that's definitely, I would say, a new thing to get that consistency across the board, which happened really probably around 2000 and 2001, I think, both that between efforts through AASHTO and PTI to really get that as a standard within the industry, having certification for personnel. And it's two parts. One is the training that goes with it. And I think the feedback just across the board I've seen, and you could probably comment some of the recent ones, Tim, the feedback on the courses, I think just from the content, even from experienced folks, is always, very high marks, I think. And people always, even experienced people are learning stuff from that course. But I think the certification component is another key piece because it really establishes a minimum bar, certainly with both experience requirements, a certain level of minimum experience coupled with the training. And the goal would be, no matter who's coming out of that, you have some sense of what are these key important things within this industry to ensure the quality and long-term durability is there and what affects it. And I bring up, one of the things that I think some of our colleagues have brought up, Brian Merrill, I think it'd be one of your future guests. He mentioned one of the trainings, we're talking about post-tension grout, just the importance of evading the right amount of water. And we really focus on that throughout the grouting trainings, through PTI and AASHTO both. And that's just really emphasized over and over again. And I think he said in one of the classes, surest way to mess up a good grout is to add too much water. And that's a key point. And I think there was a follow-up statement of that I think somebody had made too, is if you get one thing out of this, you're going to know that you can't add too much water to the grout, which is really a huge thing. And almost to the point where a lot of discussion on that in the class. And those kind of things of just making sure that everyone's on the same page, everyone's been through that, those key concepts have been reinforced. You just avoid those really big issues that could, presumably come up just because people might not be aware how important that is or how critical. And so there's been just a huge push on that. And I think the certification side, I know PTI's programs are very stringent in terms of ensuring everyone goes through it. So myself, I had to go through the course, even though I was a trainer, take the test, and I'm on the list as a certified person. So everybody that goes through it has to be registered. There's no exceptions and that kind of thing, which I think also adds to the importance and credibility of the program.
Yeah, I think the beauty too is I think what's really cool, and I'll let you get back to talking about the other program too, but to me, the beauty of it is it takes those specs that are essentially words on paper and it brings them to life. It's almost like a three-dimensional transition to bring to life what they mean, what they're saying, how it pertains to someone's job and what the project is. And that's what I love about seeing the workshop, but students and the instruction and the demos and all the things we do there. And not to mention, like I say, the pride someone gets from going through that and getting certified, and just understanding that's not only to get the certification itself, but the training and education and continuing education, even for the experienced folks, is just super valuable. And I love how that, like I say, takes what some people consider just a spec book and brings it to life.
No, I think it's a great point. Understanding the background of some of it, why are elongations important, and what cases, and what are really the key concerns or examples like that. I think bringing those, like you said, to life, working through those and some of the workshop examples, worked in small groups, and some of the demos that are performed too, the hands-on demos that are performed, those all, I think, really give a perspective of more than just reading the spec, what does this actually mean, and has this have an impact? And that's, I can say from my own experience, that's always very valuable to me, no matter what. But in this case, I think there's been a lot of effort put into getting that to where it is by a lot of people.
Great. No, that's awesome. And I know as we wrap things up here a little bit, I know some of the other things that are beyond even PTI. Again, we've talked about some of the other partner associations and things that are all in this, rowing the boat in the same direction. I know the other beauty of what's happening there at CBEI in Austin, you guys are also a huge part of the concrete bridge industry, and there's additional educational training things that you'll be doing there and are doing there at CBEI. And so that's making just another layer of excellence added to the entire industry in general, to be trying to accomplish the exact same purpose of making things better, enhancing all these different things. And that's the beauty of, say, the partnerships and all these programs that have been created with the same intent.
Yeah, I think it's really exciting times at CBEI. I think this has been a vision. Predates me for sure, but I think having the infrastructure to do really hands-on, full-scale specimens. Post-tensioning is the next one that's on the docket, but the current one being worked on now, the bridge deck training, to have a full-scale bridge and teach bridge deck inspection with actual components in an environment where you can show things that are correct or incorrect and how to identify them, and really have people literally hands-on a full-scale bridge deck. Same with the post-tension components. I think that's definitely something that's been a vision for a lot of people, and it's just always a big hurdle because the infrastructure and commitment and investment of that really takes a lot from a lot of people. And so I think certainly the support from NCBC, all the members within that group, and then PTI, PCI, and AASHTO, all directly, and coupled with the pooled fund members, so all the Texas Department of Transportation, certainly the lead, and Federal Highway. I think to bring that together, that's been a huge effort from so many people. And I think a lot of the visions that people had of having this hands-on environment, it's always been that hurdle to get that kind of commitment. It's great to see that happening. Yeah, looking forward to it. I think it's going to be exciting.
Yeah, it's great. Like I said, the big beauty of all the different type of people's learning preferences. You've got people that like to read, people that are auditory, there's people that are hands-on, visual learners. So the best part of all this is it really acknowledges everyone's learning style and everyone's perspective, and people coming at it from all these different directions. And it's really great. It's a very unifying education approach. I really love what we're doing and what you're doing and what everything else that's happening out there. So that's great. So with that, I appreciate your time, Greg, and your chance to sit down and chat over these topics, and really help, again, inform folks out there about PT concrete bridges and all their major advantages and where things are headed.
Great. I appreciate the time. It's an honor to join you today, Tim, and look forward to talking to you soon.
Thank you for joining us today on Strength in Concrete, brought to you by the Post-Tensioning Institute. We hope today's discussion provided you with valuable perspectives on the advancements and opportunities shaping our field. If you would like to deepen your knowledge or explore additional resources, we invite you to visit our website at www.post-tensioning.org. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to Strength in Concrete on your favorite podcast platform and enable notifications so you never miss an update. Until next time, this is Strength in Concrete, your trusted source for post-tensioning expertise. We look forward to connecting with you next time.